Believe it or not, this is one of the more interesting mid-size SUVs on the market. It's the plug-in hybrid. It's actually called a Plus EV now, I think it is. It used to be just called PHEV, or plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And basically it goes up against the likes of the Toyota RAV4, Mazda CX-5, and that category of mid-size SUV. Firstly, it looks pretty good. I don't mind the look of these things. It's a little bit 2015 in that it's nice and curvy, it's well proportioned. It just doesn't look futuristic at all, which a lot of the new SUVs do. That's not really a downside though. You might want something that's a bit more conservative, and that's what this showcases in my opinion. It does look a bit sort of overweight, I suppose. This bulging section out there, and it's not in a sort of muscular, sporty kind of way, I don't think anyway. It just looks a bit high to be a, you know, more conventional or typical rear haunch, and it joins with the sort of high waistline here along the lower edge of the windowsill. But yeah, all in all, I think it looks pretty good. It blends in with the traffic a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that sometimes, and it does look a bit distinctive. It looks like an MG. You can get this in two different trim levels in Australia, the Excite and the Essence, which is what we've got here, but they have the same powertrain. But I think this is interesting because it pairs a 1.5 litre turbo-petrol 4-cylinder engine with an electric motor system, as well as what they call, well, what's on paper, a 10-speed transmission. But it's actually a 6-speed transmission for the petrol engine, and then a 4-speed transmission for the electric motor. It's quite weird how it all comes together. And as we'll see in a minute, I'll go for a drive and show you, you don't really notice all those gears and that sort of combination of two different transmissions. It pretty much reminds me of a CVT, the way it operates. It's just smoothly sort of hums along at the same RPM most of the time. It's not until you give it the full beans that you can feel it sort of stepping through different stages, and then relying on the electric motor a bit, and then jumping to the petrol motor, and you can actually feel it sort of surging each time it changes gears or shifts gearboxes actually. But aside from that, it's very smooth, and it is very powerful. So this produces 189 kilowatts and 370 Newton meters combined. I'm sure there's another vehicle that produces more power in this class. I just can't think of one right now. But yeah, 189 kilowatts is very powerful for this category. And it feels pretty good too. Like, it actually feels like it's going really quickly and you're not even trying. It's effortless in its power delivery. I quite like this theme. It's not too over the top, but there is certainly a lot of leather or leather look trim, including all across the dash here. That's just fake stitching along the along the dash, but it's all soft sort of touch, except the lower half. But even that, it's pretty thick plastic. It's not too bad. And then these seats are awesome. Like, they look like they're, you know, proper Recaros out of a high-end sports car. And they actually provide comfort and support too. They don't just look good, they're actually functional. And then when you start it up, it doesn't actually start. It just sort of turns on like an electrical appliance almost. At the moment, I'm running a very low battery. I've just used it all the way down to 0%. Because I wanted to see how it drives with no battery capacity left. And it drives pretty much the same. It's just that you can't actually hit the EV mode. You've got a separate EV mode down here, allowing you to run or drive the vehicle pretty much as an EV or in fully electric mode. But when you have no battery, it won't let you do that. In terms of cabin space and everything though, this is quite nice. The only thing I'm finding is not the best is the seat position. It's kind of, I'm going to try and explain this, a bit hard to explain, but it's tilted forward a bit, and you can lower the seat using this button here, but the whole seat will lower. Some premium vehicles, you push the back of the button and the back of the seat will lower down, whereas that doesn't move at all. It's just basically a switch up and down. And then you've got the recline adjustment here, and that doesn't move up or down either. But yeah, I can't, if I put the seat reclining back further, it feels like I'm a bit too far away from the steering wheel. And if I tilt it up, it feels like I'm sort of sitting forward. And of course, being a Chinese vehicle, there is limited reach adjustment for the steering column. It does actually move back and forth, which is great. A lot of the Chinese vehicles, they don't actually move back and forward, only up and down, but it's just not ideal for my height. I'm about 170 centimeters. And yeah, I just can't get fully comfortable. As I said, it's either tilting forward too much or leaning back and then I'm reaching for the steering wheel a little bit. Good amount of space though. As you can see, my head's nowhere near the ceiling, and it feels quite spacious and open and airy in here too. And then in the back, you've got quite a spacious rear seat area actually. This is one of the more spacious models in this class. Like, look at that leg room. As I said, my seat is maybe a little bit forward compared with the average height person, but that passenger seat is more in a standard sort of position. You've still got plenty of leg room at the bottom there. This rear bench actually reclines as well. It's slightly reclined at the moment, so you can sit it up a little bit. You've got a bit of a step there, so you can see that's more of a normal position, or you can recline it back and go for a more cruisy seating position. But yeah, that's actually probably too far back actually. It feels like I'm almost lying down, but it would be very comfortable if you're on a long trip or something like that. And then you've got a very nice center console here as well, center armrest, covered in leather look trim with some red stitching and this metallic, it's quite nice trimming on the outside there. And then down below we've got twin USB ports and separate climate vents. But yeah, overall this is a very spacious vehicle. I've got plenty of headroom there. It would be one of the biggest in this specific class for sure. Little map pockets, both sides. And then around at the back, we've got an electric tailgate there and 451 litres of cargo capacity, which expands to 1275 with the rear seats folded down. But I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but the loading space is quite high, and also these walls seem to, you know, come right out into the center or towards the center. Other SUVs, that dips down a bit and goes in. There's a little pocket there, a little netted storage area, and there's no pull tabs to pop down the rear seats, no hooks for shopping bags, and no 12-volt socket in the back here, which is a bit of a downside. And then underneath you've got a puncture repair kit for the tyre, instead of a spare tyre, and also the charging cables. It's a nice little spot for the charging cables that's there. And then the battery, the main accessories battery. So being a plug-in electric vehicle, you can actually plug this in. It's got a Type 2 socket there, and you can charge the 16.6 kilowatt hour battery. Kilowatt hour. And that provides a range of about 63 kilometers when it's full on the NEDC test cycle, which is a bit old now. It's not as good as or it's not as realistic as the WLTP, which was designed to be more real world rather than sort of test lab. So yeah, 63 kilometers might be a bit ambitious. I think I haven't tested it. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't actually tested how far you can get in pure EV mode. If you floor the accelerator pedal, it doesn't actually kick in the petrol engine unless your battery is quite low. So I did some 0 to 100 tests in EV mode only, and it was able to do the complete 100 kilometers an hour with a full throttle all the way up to 100 and achieved a time for you. But yeah, it's a bit slow. It's good getting off the mark, but it's a little bit slow at the top end. It's also a bit unusual when you're going through the gears with an electric motor because yeah, you normally associate gear changing with petrol motors. So to have the electric motor go through a couple of gears as you're accelerating on, it's a little bit unusual. It's interesting. At low speeds, you can't really feel those transmissions working together. It just feels like a CVT actually. It just, yeah, happens all in the background. It's pretty smooth. I do find that the revs, or it feels like the revs are pretty high all the time, kind of like a CVT. And I do have the battery recharge on the default setting. So if you put it on high, it'll try to use the petrol motor as much as it can to top up the battery or recharge the battery. In fact, I've got it on 0% now. But even if you put it in default mode, I'll just slow down a bit. If I apply power, that initial power is all electric power, even though it's at 0% battery. So it is still providing electric power. It's just that you can't hit the EV mode. It actually says, yeah, EV mode entry not support, which I guess translates to mean you don't have enough battery. but you can still feel it picking up. This is only a 1.5 litre turbo engine. It's definitely got a lot more forceful acceleration than a typical 1.5 turbo, especially low down. Like, I can just apply the throttle and it'll pick up really well from the low end. It's kind of a strange feeling because you can't hear it picking up. The engine doesn't kick in until afterwards, but I'll try to show you. So I'll slow down to 60 kilometers an hour and I'll floor it now. So it sort of starts picking up before the engine actually kicks down, or the engine kicks in, sorry, and kicks down a gear. In terms of the ride and handling, yeah, it's definitely more on the softer side of the segment, which is fine if that's what you're after and if that's what MG is focused on. And you don't really feel that, or there's no sort of downside to that until you start pushing it a little bit and taking on some corners. So down here we'll push on a little bit more than a regular sort of attitude. Yeah, and you can just feel the body roll a little bit. But it is comfortable down through these corners. I'll just tip it in a bit. Yeah, you can really feel that front end tipping down and over, and the back coming around a little bit, as in lean. So down here it's very uneven surfaces and lots of patchwork. I can hear a bit of a rattle in the door there. The sunroof is kind of rattling and squeaking a little bit. But yeah, one of the main things I notice is the noise. There is a definite noise, sort of crashing. It's not really crashing, but it's definitely making a noise as I'm going over this rough surface. And I've been over that rough surface in lots of different vehicles in the same class as this, and some of them are just better resolved and quieter. The most interesting part of this vehicle though is definitely the hybrid system, in my opinion. It's kind of unique at the moment in this class, having a plug-in hybrid, but also the way this one works. It just means you can use it as an electric vehicle, provided you can use that 60 kilometer range every day, or commuting at least a few times a week, sorry. But then you have the benefit of good fuel economy, but also good performance when you combine the petrol engine and the electric motor. Let's see what it goes like now with the performance testing.